All right, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, especially with these extra days off because of the cold days this week, I want to make sure that we know what we're doing with the notebook and that your final notebook collection for the quarter is going to be set. So you have your notebook and questioning that we've discussed in class, and we've tried to focus on questioning, and you've had a questioning activity where that's based in some research out of Harvard that asks you to develop your questioning skills, and we're going to continue to doing that, and we're going to continue to give you prompts and ask you to develop questions concerning a particular topic. This is going to help you in your PARCC exams, no matter what subject area, and it's going to help you in your careers as you begin to learn how to ask the right questions and try to focus in on what exactly is important on this particular lesson. Your notebook is another form of developing your questioning skills and developing your your attention span, and also developing your focus on what's important and what isn't during a particular lesson. We began on January 5th, 2015 for this particular notebook collection this quarter, third quarter. You'll also note that on February 18th, that's this week, as of today, we have about 30 days worth of school days. That's 5 days a week from January 5th to the 18th, February 18th. Minus 3 holiday/professional days, minus 3 cold/snow days. We're left with about 24 days of notes. So you and your parents, as you go through and look at your notebook and ask yourself, did I do a good job? The first question is, do I have about 24 days worth of notes in my notebook? Now, some people like to say, I just need 1 page of notes, but 1 page of notes really, for the topics that we're covering, probably doesn't suffice. We've gone over, if you remember correctly, mitosis. We've gone over meiosis, and we've gone over the simple Mendelian genetics. And Punnett squares. And this kind of information requires that you process it. And you might say, well, I have Punnett squares, I can check that off my list. But understanding Punnett squares and understanding the questions that they're going to ask you concerning Punnett squares are two different procedures, two different sets, depths of knowledge. So when you're talking about Punnett squares, you're really talking about trying to look at and understand and then process word problems. And you're going to have to really key in on some of our vocabulary that we've tried to develop over these 24 days of lessons. Talking about developing these word problem skills and looking at a situation that they might give you, that this individual is blue-eyed or that individual is green-eyed or whatever the situation may be. You're going to have to look for some keywords. You're going to have to look for the vocabulary and understand what the vocabulary means in order to process it. And that means that you have to actually have the vocabulary here in your notebook. And you have to actually have the questions that you have developed here in the particular margins where I expect to have them. And you should have a summary of each of your day's lessons here as well, and of course your title. Date would be nice as well. So this is what I'm expecting with your notebook, and you might think, well, this is being pretty picky, but the idea is that I've given you the content. We've talked about it, or you've worked on it in labs, or you've worked on it in groups, or whatever the case may be over these 24 days that we've been together. And you should have come up with some questions that you put here in the margins. You've, as far as questions go, you've been given at the beginning of the 24th, at the beginning of the semester, you were given the chapter 5's questions, and recently you were given chapter 6's questions. And the idea is that those are to guide you, are only the beginning of the questioning that you should be doing. They're guiding you on what's important for the exam, and so you should be doing them and then referencing them in the notes and making sure that you understand how these notes correlate with those questions. But you should also be asking your own questions and things that you personally don't understand. I think when we look at, and this is kind of an overall, an overview, but when I look at students that are not doing well in class, the really big question is, are they asking questions? Are they processing the information? Writing it down in neatly and organized and putting a title and a date is great, but then you have to take it to the next level and ask deep questions that reference whether you understand the material as it's going to be tested, right? And then summarizing the main ideas. Again, there's this kind of theme that goes through Cornell Notes, and again through this questioning activity out of Harvard, and that we're going to again continue throughout the rest of the year. And the idea is, can you identify what's important over this material that's been posed to you? That's one. And two, can you think and develop your own? If you can develop your own good questions on this material, then you're fairly ready to take the exam. So we've done labs, we've done activities, we've done lectures, we've done problem sets, we've done quizzes and exams. We focused probably something like 30% on labs, another 20% on activities, probably 10% on all the exams. And so that leaves us with about 40% lectures. And by lectures, I mean question and answer as well. So the Q&A that we've had in all the classes really, I think, should help. But the problem with the Q&A is this Q part, which means you need to have good questions to ask that are related to the topic and related to the test that's coming up. I can give you answers on just about everything that comes into your mind. If I don't know it, I can look it up. The issue is, what kinds of questions can you ask? And that's why I think Google is of limited use to some individuals, because you have to be able to ask the right question in order to get the right answer from Google. So I've had at least one student ask me, well, why didn't I get an A on my notebook? So again, your notebook, it has to consist, obviously, of the number of days that we've met in class, a minimum, right, of 1 to 2 pages, probably an average of 2 pages a day. Now, that's average, because on some days it'll be 6 and some days it'll be just 1, but an average about 2 pages a day. You should have a title. You should have, obviously, your questions. And I'm looking at quality, not just do you have them, but what kinds of questions are you asking? I'm looking at a sampling. Obviously, I don't have time to read every word that you write, but I look for samplings. I take samples of your questions, and I ask myself, is this student asking good questions? Is this student making good summaries? Summarizing is a skill and is something that's very important. And if you're writing good summaries and you're writing good, and you're taking in all the notes, all the content, you're writing out your diagrams and you're labeling them, and you're making the drawings of whatever it is that we're talking about, but you're also labeling them so that you can reference them later. You're writing down those questions. You're asking, you're showing me, you're demonstrating to me that on every day you're processing the information. People that do this tend to do well and do this, and then go over remember the big one, besides taking good notes. Besides taking good notes, the big idea is is your workbook questions, right? So people that do both 1 and 2 tend to do well on the tests. If you're studying, not only doing, but using this questioning skills, asking questions about the workbook answers, not just choosing A, B, C, D, not just filling in the blanks and or copying the answers from someone else, but actually writing down your own questions, reading a question, saying, wow, what if Mr. Mendoza turned that around? And again, the questions are posed from the book, and for the most part are word for word from the workbook. So really it isn't the case, but as you develop over time, you need to be able to read example questions and then ask yourself, what kinds of questions will he ask on the exam? And that way, students can really process the information, but also prepare for whatever any professor, any teacher asks them on an exam. If you're asking yourself, how can they twist this up? How can they ask me a question? What are the possible situations where I might be able to apply them? What are the key terms or key ideas that trigger some memory that I know I have to divide or multiply or add up or subtract? What is it? What process do I have to do when I'm given this type of question? And can the question be changed so that I have to do the opposite or have to do some other function? So this is the kind of thing that a good student is going to do. Doing these two things together, processing, and this is a key word, and I keep saying it, but I don't think a lot of students really get it, is processing the information is more than just taking the notes. It's more than just staying awake in class. It's thinking about it and breaking it down. Well, I hope this helped. I'm going to try to get Thursday and Friday lessons online as well, because I understand we're going to probably be out of school for cold days. We've already missed one day, and I don't want you to get too far behind. So I'll tell you in class today, but I'll also email you the other two lessons, one for Thursday and then another one for Friday. That way we keep on task and on schedule. All right. You have a great day. Bye-bye.